on Zoom?
I believe so. Okay, I will go ahead and just kind of start this out. Make sure I've got this. We're going to have a presentation from Brandon Land. Some of you might remember him. He has been a planner in different areas, Leon Valley, Alberti, has worked for himself at this point. Let's see. It's supposed to be on here. Oh. There we go. And so the reason why I asked Brandon to come talk to y'all today is because I want to just give you some education, make sure that you're comfortable in the role, that you understand kind of what we're supposed to be doing. And sometimes I'm super busy, I don't have really time to talk about it or explain it. And sometimes it's easier when you have somebody that's not as close to this kind of explaining things. And so I wanted to just introduce Brandon, he's a resource. Not a full-time person that we need him once in a while. We come to him and so he'll do the presentation. He'll try to keep us around an hour. Yeah.
I see that look on your face. You're like, gee, Brandon.
But anyway,
I know a talker and I don't get it. Cut me off. But ask me questions too. I love that. I was just telling Councilman that I love doing this. It's one of my favorite things to do. And I love it at heart. I'm a teacher, so I love to get out here. So yeah, as Warren said, my name's Brandon Land. I've been a planner for about 14 years. I've had the chance to work in a lot of different cities. And every city I go work for, I take a little something away. It teaches me a little something new. And I really enjoy coming here and passing it on. I love working for the city of Blanco. I love this place. I'm driving up here. Be able to be involved. So yeah, I love the opportunity to come and do this. And so yeah, I kind of, on this slide, I think words, I'm real big on words. And so I think sometimes identifying some of these keywords helps that we're all linguistic and helps us to understand what we're doing. I don't like the word authority and role. A lot of times people say we're planning on the commission. What's the authority of the commission? What's the role of the commission? I'm not real big on those words. To me, it's more from what I've learned and working with lawyers, and it's really kind of about, what the mandates are. As a planner, I've had a habit of going out, trying to fight the good fight. I've had some really wise people say, Brandon, it's not your role to be a renegade. Try to stop that development. You need to remember what your mandate is. There's a time and a place for fighting the good fight, for being an advocate for things, and then other times there's a mandate too. We live in a rule of law, so one of those components is, especially when you're in authority and you have power, you have a role or whatever, is the mandate. So as a former planning director, I've always been, I've found it really helpful to know what my mandate is. And so I love kind of passing that on to other elected and appointed people to help them understand what their mandate is. At least you know what your mandate is before you decide to go burn the place out, do some curvy stuff or something. So, but anyway, I commend y'all too. I'm jealous. I've never been a planning and zoning commissioner. I really want to be one day. I'm just city council member. I just always find myself on this side of the microphone for some reason. And so anyway, yeah, so I don't know. I'm not sure anymore. It's hard to figure out. I think we show up in this building. We're all putting ourselves. Somebody's got to do it. So I think we're all sort of around the applause for just being here in the first place. So yeah. We talk about what's the mandate, what's the responsibility. I don't think we talk about the word responsibility enough anymore. And I think that's a big thing for all of us in ensuring this democracy. Talk a little bit about history, which is my favorite topic when it comes to this. We'll talk about comprehensive planning and the implementation of planning. Comprehensive planning and implementation are two different things. We'll talk about zoning. So put 5 minutes on the first slide. Or we'll start. How many slides did you put in? 145. No, I guess 124. But by average, like 20 seconds a slide.
Brendan, your mic is not on. You probably don't need it.
Well, So just start off with the high level. You guys probably have gotten this already, but there's really two types of cities in Texas, and it's important to know what kind of city you are because that determines the type of mandate, responsibility, authority, role you have. They're general law cities, which you guys are a general law city. All cities under 5,000 residents are general law. State law doesn't allow you to become home rule. If cities go over 5,000 by election, they can become a home rule city. And I'll talk about what that is. Government structure is determined by charter. Write your own constitution, basically. With general law, you have the authority that the state law says you have, and that's it. Home rule, you can have whatever kind of setup you want. Strong mayor, weak mayor, city council form of government, council manager form of government, have as many boards as you want. It's all nights of the week. It's up to you guys. Yeah, so there's three different types of general law cities. There's a type A, aldermanic form, which you call that city council, mayor plus 5 council members. That's what you guys are. And then there's a type B, which is a board of aldermen. And there's usually a mayor and 5 aldermen or alderwomen. And there's a type C, which is the commission form, which is a mayor plus 2. City of Von Ormy are work for. They are a commission form. So yeah, you guys are the type A. And so what are the different legal authorities that general law has versus home rule? Well, it's kind of like, remember in school, we were taught the strict interpretation of the Constitution versus the loose interpretation. Well, it's kind of like that with general law and home rule. With general law, a general law city, like y'all, you may only exercise the powers that the Texas Local Government Code and the state statutes say that you can. So that's all. So unless it doesn't say you can, then you can't. The home rule is flipped. So that means unless it says you can't, then you can't. So that's just something to keep in mind as a general law city. You guys are governed by only what the state law says you may do. And this is sort of just the general, if this were a company, you got the CEO at the top or the board of directors. This is the way you guys are. People always put the voters up there. I like to put the electorate or the citizens. They put citizens up. Not all citizens are voting. And so I was like, put the electors. So those that are registered to vote can come out. They are, and that's the breakdown there. And then there's the governing body, of course. So the governing body reports directly to your electorate, your residents, your citizens that come out and vote. And then the governing body is really kind of broken up into, governing body is elected, and then you got your appointed officials. And so they're appointed by the elected officials. And you guys, as the PNZA Commission, you all are one of those commissions. There's other boards. One board that we talked a little bit about tonight is the Board of Adjustment. So they also deal with zoning, but they have a very different role. But they are also appointed by the city council. And of course, the governing body appoints the city administrator. City administrator appoints directors, and directors usually have staff working for them. So it's kind of great. That's it.
And here the council actually is the Board of Adjustment.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah. So what are some different common types? I'm going to use the word authority, because this is what we're used to. We look at our federal government. You've got the executory type of authority. It's like the presidential, the president of the United States. They execute, they don't make laws. And then you have legislative types of authorities. What they do is they draft the laws, they create policy. Then you have the judicial types of authority, which is the Supreme Court. We talked a little bit about what y'all's judicial branch is here in the city. They only interpret the law. They don't make the law, they don't execute it. They just interpret it. Is this legal or not, according to the state law or other city laws? Usually a judicial body is the final say. So if somebody comes into the city and they go to the Board of Adjustment or something, they can't go to the city council and appeal. And then there's this last one, which is kind of a weird one. And cities have this power, and it's kind of misleading sometimes because it gets confusing, but it's a ministerial act. When the king or the queen of England ordains somebody, it's kind of determined that's what's happening, but you could just make that person a knight, but we have to go to this act and it has to be done in public because who's the only person that can carry out that ministerial act? Well, it's the king or the queen of England. Well, ministerial acts are, and I'll explain a little bit more, they're performed as a matter of legal obligation. The state law says only y'all may approve this, but it gives you very narrow confines and says if it meets all these requirements, you have to That's particularly when it comes to flats, I'm talking about that more, but there's a reason for that. You want these acts to be done in public so the public can see what's going on and make sure that these ministerial acts are being done appropriately. You wouldn't want these ministerial acts being done, you know, any city behind doors, because you want to keep that and make sure you guys and other boards are doing it the right way. So who applies this type of authority here within the city? Well, when it comes to executory, legislative, ministerial, and quasi-judicial, who's in charge of these? Who has these types of authority? Well, the governing body sort of has some executory authority. They do hire and terminate city managers or other potential staff members that are appointed directly. They do sign off on contracts. So there's some executory component, but for the most part, they're legislative. They create new laws, they approve things, they approve budgets. For the most part, they're a legislative body. They create zone changes, change regulations. They're also a ministerial body to a certain extent. There are some things that state law says y'all have to be the ones to approve it in public, but state law says, you know, you must do it. However, you guys must pass a budget. So to some extent, that act of it is ministerial, but you create that budget. And then there's, so who does legislative action? Well, you guys are mostly legislative. So y'all mostly deal with zone changes. You mostly deal with changing regulations. You mostly deal with working on a comprehensive plan, which is, these are all legislative acts that create new regulations and new policies and procedures for the city and the development community bylaws. So that's mostly y'all's task, but there's also a big component too. Y'all are also largely ministerial. And when it comes to planning, y'all are mostly ministerial. And I'll explain that detail. I just wanted to go through the authorities. And then of course, there's the Board of Adjustment, which as Warren pointed out, y'all don't have a Board of Adjustment. The City Council acts as the Board of Adjustment, but the Board of Adjustment is just judicial. Somebody wants a variance, doesn't agree with Warren's interpretation of the code, or the planning director says, I don't think he's reading this right. It should be a me. It's happened before. Yeah, so I think I still have more arguments against these than you before. But so yeah, Board of Adjustment is totally quasi-judicial. They're sort of like the Supreme Court. So let's look at some of the relationships. Like I had that board chart a minute ago. So so the governing body, what's the relationship of the governing body to the PNC? Well, the governing body has to consider y'all's recommendation. So state law says, the way y'all have it set up, the state law says that, and I'll read it here in section 2, a general rule city, they may elect to have a planning and zoning commission. And a home rule city has to have a planning and zoning commission. But a general law city may have one. And if they have one, they've got to listen to y'all's recommendation.